Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Innal hamdalillah nahmadu wa nasta'inu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu billahi min syururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. May yahdihillahu fala mudhillalah wa may yudlil fala hadiyalah. Wa asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarikalah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan 'abduhu wa rasuluh. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, we praise Him, we seek His help, we seek His forgiveness, and we seek the protection of Allah from the evils in our hearts and from the evil things that we might be tempted to do. He whom Allah has guided, none of us can lead him astray. But he whom Allah has led astray, none of us can lead him at the right path. I bear witness that none has the right to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has no partners, and I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his slave and his messenger. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم وما يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. O you truly believe of taqwa to Allah as is His due, and do not die except in the state of Islam, which is a state of complete submission and surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. O mankind of taqwa to Allah, who has created you from a single soul, that is Adam, peace be upon him, and from him Allah has created his wife, that is Eve. And from both of them, Allah has dispersed into men and women. And from both of them, Allah dispersed into many men and women. And have taqwa to Allah, in which by using His name, you have made many requests and demands from one another, and maintain the bonds of kinship. Indeed, Allah is ever over you an observer. O you truly believe of taqwa to Allah, and speak always the truth. If you do so, Allah will direct you to do good, righteous deeds, and He will forgive you of your sins. And whosoever obey Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would have achieved a great achievement, that is being admitted into paradise. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كلام الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. To proceed on, the best of the speech is the speech of Allah, which is in the Quran. The best guidance is guidance of beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The worst thing in Islam is the introductions of new elements in faith, and every newly invented matter is an innovation. Every innovation is a misguidance, and every misguidance will lead us to the hellfire. As-salatu wassalamu ala khatamil anbiya wal mursalin Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And greetings of peace and blessings go to our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is the last and final of all the prophets of Allah. Alhamdulillah, in London today, as you can see, right, the sun is shining on me again, alhamdulillah, like last week. Yep, Allah has given us an amazing weather. It is as if, as we talked last week, that the earth is finally breathing, able to breathe, on the basis of pollutions and all this, and the things that we human beings have made the earth into such a state. As you can see, I think a few days ago in India even, right, for the first time in so many years, they can even see the mountains in the background because the pollution has dropped down drastically. Alhamdulillah. Now, as I said before, right, alhamdulillah, this year, probably, right, you and I, at least also in London or in the UK, we may not be able to pray in the mosque, especially during the Tarawih prayer and all this, but don't despair. Alhamdulillah, Allah is always the best of planner, that we are able to at least, right, able to worship Him. We are still alive, alhamdulillah, right? So we shouldn't define Islam as an entity which can only exist in the mosque, right? Perhaps this Allah is testing us that Islam, it can exist everywhere, alhamdulillah, right? So you and I, we need to ensure that we make full use of the time that we have, alhamdulillah, in the home, where most of us are locked down at home. We couldn't go out, and you shouldn't go out unless you have to, in order to protect yourselves, your family, and the rest of the society, right? So this is something in which we have to make full use of it. Alhamdulillah, with the brothers, on Thursday, I have advised them, or we have gone through some of the things in which they would need to recite, or the dua or the qunut or tarawih. I'm trying to help everybody, right, in order to ensure that they are have the ability to lead the Tarawih prayer, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us patience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also grant us with the ability, of course, to meet the month of Ramadan. Right? Brothers and sisters in Islam, as you can see, Ramadan is only 2 weeks away, or less than 2 weeks, subhanAllah, right? That, and Sha'ban, not too long ago, we were discussing about Sha'ban, wasn't it? Now, it comes and is going to leave us soon. Same thing as Ramadan, right? It will come and it will leave us soon very fast, right? Something that you and I, we need to quickly um, make full use or optimize our time, inshallah, in order to ensure, right, that we are able to grasp the maximal potential that we can achieve in the month of Ramadan, inshallah. Okay. Now, do also understand about, just a revision about the Sha'ban, right? We are going to reach the end of the Sha'ban. Those, I think today is the 18th, wasn't it true? 18th of Sha'ban, perhaps, right? Those who have not fasted at all, you are not allowed to fast now until Ramadan. Those who are fasting or have been fasting Mondays and Thursdays, or in the white days, yeah, the 13th, 14th, 15th of the month, right? You are allowed to continue with the fasting, but do not fast 1 or 2 days before Ramadan, right? In UK, Ramadan has not been determined yet. In some countries, like Singapore, it has been. Other countries it has been determined, right? That Ramadan will start on the 24th of um, April, right? So we just need to look out and remind each other regarding when it is going to start. By tuning into the various channels, Islam channel, all this. And once it has been declared, right? Because usually it's after perhaps Maghrib, right? That there will be the declaration in UK and in London when the Ramadan is going to start. So if it's announced today, it's going to start tomorrow, then we should try and inshallah start with our Tarawih prayer tonight, right? If it's going to be tomorrow, right? So if it's on the 24th of April, then 23rd night after Maghrib, the Ramadan is going to start. Then we should, after Isha, right? Anytime between Isha and Fajr, we should try to pray the Tarawih prayer, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow all of us to be prepared yet to face this amazing month. It is going to be an amazing month, brothers and sisters, despite the lockdowns and despite our inability to go out. Make full use of it, right? Make sure we are able to grasp, as I said, the maximum potential. Allah is always the best of planners, right? I've never myself the adhan in at the house 5 times a day. I think Shaitan is so tired of hearing, because as you know, when you do adhan, Shaitan will leave the house and run away from the house. Isn't it true? Right? That's why, alhamdulillah, I have never been so easy for me to wake up for Fajr, not for Fajr, for the Tahajjud, subhanAllah, in the early part of the day before Fajr. So, subhanAllah. So, there's always a lot of wisdom why we are in this state. But most importantly, inshallah, you and I, we have a duty to really, really, really beg Allah for forgiveness, right? Especially based on the fact that perhaps the reason why this is happening with the coronavirus is due to our inability or ungratefulness to him, our inability to really worship him in the best of manners. Right? We have been too lax in our worship, perhaps. So you and I, we need really sincerely to come back to him, right? Sincerely pray properly with a khushu' and inshallah, right? Ask for his forgiveness, right? And ask Allah to alleviate us, yeah, from these difficulties that we are facing. Now, this again, as we approach Ramadan, right? I advise you and I, yes, you and I, and with your friends and all this, ask each other for forgiveness, right? As I always ask you for your forgiveness in case I have done anything wrong that might upset you, right? Do forgive me, right? So within yourselves, also ask each other for forgiveness, right? Now, if I ask for forgiveness and you do not forgive me, that's not my problem anymore, right? Sincerely, I've asked for your forgiveness, and you should forgive whatever things I've done, right? So between each other, between you, your family members, and all this, and your friends, do seek each other's forgiveness, so that we can start Ramadan, inshallah, on a fresh, clean slate, inshallah. Okay. Now, so today's topic. So I was just talking in order to let more people join us, inshallah. So today's topic about Ramadan is about the basic principles of fasting, right? The do's and don'ts. This is where, brothers and sisters, that there are quite a lot of people, hate to say this, but they have been taking the fasting like a ritual. That means for many people, they fast um, just for the sake of fasting, right? That means not eating, not drinking, not refraining from many other things, right? And subhanallah, like even for the, forgive me if I say something wrong, okay? Even for the children, right? People are so busy training the children at 6 years old, 7 years old, right? Or even 5 years old. Okay, you need to fast half a day. Then after that, you stop eating by lunch. I mean, you start eating lunch, and then you don't eat again. So training the children fasting, but subhanallah, what about the prayer? Isn't the prayer more important than the fasting in terms of acts of worship, right? So while we are training our children to fast, alhamdulillah, but we also should train them to pray, isn't it true? Right? And this is very important, right? Do not, especially for parents, do not just focus on fasting just because everybody is fasting, right? The prayer must also be starting to be engaged on. Yeah, make sure that they join you. We know about the sunnah of the prayer, that it is important that at 7 years old, right, the child should be asked to start praying. Isn't it true? And when the child is not praying by 10, then um, well, you should discipline them. But I think more important than discipline is to talk to them, isn't it true? To talk to them, explain to them that the problem with us, especially the older generations, would be that no explanations were given about the prayer. Why do you pray? Right? It is all about, again, the ritualistic part of the praying. Right? It needs to be explained very clearly. For example, why do you pray? Right? For example, about the history of Isra Mi'raj. Right? What do you say in the meaning behind the prayer? Right? Like your Al-Fatiha. Right? What does it mean? So all these kind of things need to be taught in a level of understanding of a child. Same thing as a fasting, right? We need to ensure, right, that the fasting is really imparted to the children, not just like a ritual, right, but also in the form of understanding why we are fasting. Okay, now the main, so first of all, of course, right, we need to understand that fasting is a means of first of all, is a pillar of Islam, isn't it true? Right? So pillar means, and alhamdulillah, yesterday, just for your information, we started a new class for the beginners, for the brothers. Alhamdulillah, was very well received. There was even a non-Muslim, yep, called Antonio, who joined us and make dua, subhanallah, that he is going to take shahada, inshallah, on Wednesday, right? So please make dua that Allah, well, hate to say this, that Allah will make him alive, to be alive still until Wednesday, that he's able to take his shahada, right? So yes, so we're talking about all these basic things about where is Allah, right? About Tawheed and all this. Okay. Now, can whoever it is inform those people not to call me right? Because on Skype, they should know that it is on Saturdays is on YouTube. Okay. Now, so fasting is one of the pillars of Islam, right? And we have to completely understand the basic principle of fasting. It's not just a ritualistic aspect of fasting, right? Now, tell me, what is the main goal of fasting? Anybody, quickly? In a sense that after Ramadan, if you have not achieved this goal, right, then you have to have a big question mark, right, about whether your fasting has been accepted or not, right? So yes, so the main goal of fasting is to achieve taqwa, isn't it true? Which surah in the Quran? In surah, turn to surah number 2 again, in verse number 183. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Yeah, all you believe, right? And we know from many of our discussions, Ibn Mas'ud was saying that if there is a verse that begins with Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, which means all you truly believe, you and I, we have to really pay attention. What comes after it is an important command of Allah, right? Fasting has been prescribed to you and to those who were before you, right? So that means fasting wasn't unique to us as Ummah Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It was prescribed to those before us. The purpose or the function of it, the ultimate goal, inshallah, are the same. It is to achieve a state of taqwa, right? So taqwa itself, as you know, that it is an ability for you and I to fear Allah so much that you will always want to prevent ourselves from disobeying Him. At the same time, that you love Allah so much that you will always want to um, allow yourself or try your best to obey Him at all times, right? Not just in Ramadan, not just in the mosque, not just when doing your umrah, not just when everybody is looking at you, but at all times, in all places. And this is taqwa. So, as I said last week, right? The fact that we all of us are praying at home, right? Especially for the brothers, when you're so used to praying in the mosque for the brothers, right? The quality of the salah at home and the quality of salah in the mosque, it must be the same, isn't it true? Do you agree? If something is wrong with the quality, of course, we are humans, right? Sometimes it goes up and down, right? But if it's drastically wrong, so for example, right, when you're at home, you pray your dhuhr within 3 minutes, you finished, right? Then there must be something wrong in the quality of the salah, isn't it true? Whether you're in the mosque or whether you're at home, that quality must be similar, the same, or even at least similar, isn't it true? The quality in terms of your khushu', your ability to submit yourself to Allah, to surrender yourself to Allah, right? It should be similar, inshallah, right? So this is taqwa, right? Now, even if I can remember, was it Umar ibn Khattab was saying about patience, right? To be a higher level of patience is this ability to refrain ourselves from committing things that causes Allah to be angry or to disobey Allah, right? This is a higher level of patience. To do things in which easily, yeah, would flout Allah's rules or would disobey Allah. It's very easy, right? You just need to sleep for the whole afternoon without praying, right? Or sleep through the night until the sunrise. It's very easy, yeah. But to do things in which causes Allah to be pleased with us, or to do things that prevent ourselves from disobeying Allah, is a bit difficult, right? And it's a high, like it require a lot high level of patience, right? So, so this is something in which we need to understand the goal of fasting, which is to achieve taqwa. The next thing that we need to move forward, right? Alhamdulillah, maybe after Ramadan, we achieve a level of taqwa, inshallah, right? Some people after Ramadan, at least for the next few weeks, right? Praying on time, praying in congregation, right? Trying to control your mouth still, right? But somehow or other, after that, it drops completely, right? Always remember, right, that ability to have this taqwa to Allah, right? It must be maintained at least to a certain level, right? Reasonable level until what? Until death. And that is quite difficult, right? This is, and another word for this is called istiqamah. It means to be steadfast of the deen, right? We discussed last week about istiqamah, right? So if you turn to Surah Number 15, verse number 99 again, 1599, which we discussed last week, right? Wa'bud rabbaka hatta ya'tiyakal ya'tiyakal yaqin. Yeah, wa'bud rabbaka hatta ya'tiyakal yaqin. Yeah, worship your Lord until there comes to you the certainty. Certainty means death. So continuously, inshallah, you and I, we are reminding each other, yeah, to achieve this state of taqwa. That's why, alhamdulillah, despite the beautiful weather, you can be in your garden, you might be doing barbecue, but Allah is guiding you and I to meet on YouTube, alhamdulillah, in order to remind ourselves about our duties to Allah. Okay? So this is important, that we have to understand that ability to have taqwa doesn't only last until during Ramadan, after Ramadan, but it should move on forward, inshallah, until the certainty, until our last breath, inshallah. Okay? And we should also understand that taqwa is not this. Taqwa is not this, right? It's not in the external appearance. It is the here. Yeah, it is from the heart, right? Prophet Muhammad SAW pointed out to the heart and said, "Taqwa is here," and this is something in which only Allah knows. Isn't it true? Right? You can't really judge a person by the cover, and this is the important phrase that you always hear: "Do not judge a book by its cover." Right? Remember the hadith about, not hadith, the story, right, about these two big shuyukhs. I told you in this class before, right? These two shuyukhs, very big shuyukhs, right? They were in a plane and they were telling each other, right? The adhan has come, right? And beside them was this woman sitting, not wearing hijab, not in a proper Islamic manner, and she was just sitting beside them, right? The So the adhan came, right? And they were asking each other, should we do our salah here, or should we do our salah when we reach the airport, right? And then they decided, okay, we should do the salah, yeah, when we reach the airport, right? So wait. And to their amazement and the surprise, the woman beside them immediately, when the adhan came, she went up to the cabin where they put the baggage and all this, took out her things and took out her praying clothes, and she immediately prayed. Now the two shuyukhs, they were quite ashamed of themselves, right? And they were said, look at us, right? We are supposed to be a big ulama in Islam, right? But look at this woman beside us, right? Completely, this woman understood the meaning of taqwa in the sense of obeying Allah. You and I know the hadith about praying at the early stated time. One of the best deeds in Islam is to pray at an early stated time, right? So after that, after the woman finished the prayer, they feel these two shuyukhs were so ashamed of themselves. Of course, they talk to her and they say, Subhanallah, Allah reward you and all this. And of course, they just give advice about her dressing and all this, right? But the point of it, do not judge a book by its cover, right? But that doesn't mean, of course, sisters and brothers, that you can do whatever you want. It's everything from the heart. I know what is in my heart, but there need to be a degree of obedience and submission to Allah, inshallah, right? So this is an important thing. So talking back just now a little bit about praying at an early stated time. This is one of the best, is the best deed, is a praying at an early stated time. This is, I'm sure you know, right? when you are at home and locked up and all this. Um, you know that the Dhuhr now is quite long, right? It is from perhaps um, 1:05 until about perhaps about until about 4:45 or 4:50, isn't it true? Right? And there is always this shaitan telling us, don't worry, chill, right? You're watching Netflix, right? Finish out the next Netflix first, right? Or when you're watching TV, wait until the advertisement come. Then you can watch. We have all this time, right? Subhanallah, right? This is what taqwa comes in, isn't it true? Right? That immediately, subhanallah, whether you're in the mosque or not, the call to prayer is always the same, right? Hayya ala salah. What does it mean? Come to the prayer. Hayya ala falah. Come to success, right? At no time should you and I waste and say that, oh, okay, I need to wait until the advertisement, then on TV, then I'll pray. Subhanallah, how can it be, right? We, as an Ummah Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, has been given this privilege, right? It is a huge privilege, brothers and sisters, that you and I are given the opportunity to meet Allah at least 5 times a day. Isn't it true? Even your Queen Elizabeth, they don't care. Do any one of us have been invited to the Buckingham Palace to see her? Sorry, right? No, of course not, right? But this is our Creator, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, right? Every day He's waiting for us, right? So as I said many times, I'm just talking about taqwa again, right? Diverging a little bit from the topic of fasting, right? If you have taqwa to Allah, right, you will ensure that the prayer is a highlight of your day, isn't it true? It is a highlight. Highlight means you will note down, right, in your diary, if those of you are working from home, well, the whole is about 1:05, right? I need to this important appointment with Allah which cannot be delayed. This must be done immediately, no matter how much I finished or unfinished with my work. Stop the work, go to do my prayer. Subhanallah. And this is so important, right? It is a bit tricky for those of us who go to the mosque because, like it or not, right, some mosques are praying at a little bit late, right? So, for example, when in the early days, before the British summertime, right, even though the Dhuhr is about 12, maybe 12:15 or 12:10, the mosque always pray about 1 o'clock. So we are always those who go to the mosque often, you know, right? You're always geared up. Okay, 1 o'clock, then you go to before 1, then you go to the mosque and pray, right? But now it's completely different, right? Because we're at home, we have the free choice to do the prayer as early as we want in terms of the timing of the prayer, right? Don't do it the prayer, of course, before the prayer time, right? So this is something in which you and I, we need to plan our time properly. We need to make the prayer as the highlight of the day, right? That this is something in which you forget everything about the world. Remember, brothers and sisters, you and I, we are going to meet Allah. Yeah, you and I are going to meet Allah, right, on the day of judgment. None of us will be exempted. There is an appointment to meet Allah. The very first thing Allah is going to ask us on the day of judgment is our salah, right? So this is important for you and I, right, to try, right, and stop the work and pray on time. Of course, there will be situations in which you can't, right? Then you do your best, right? That you can't stop work, but you do your best. But when at night at home, right? Sometimes some of you are still working. Alhamdulillah, may Allah protect you, right? But when you are at home alone and Fajr and all this with your family and all this, it's no excuse, isn't it true? Right? And subhanallah, right? If you are able to um, pray on time, yeah, pray at the early stated time, that is the best. Because don't we want to be among those who are doing deeds, right? Doing deeds as the best deed, right? We do not want to do second best or third best. We want to do the best deed. Yeah, in one of the hadith, the best deed is to pray at an early stated time, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us or make it easy for us, grant us ease to do our prayers at the early stated time. So, but we have to discipline ourselves. There's nothing more important than to pray, inshallah, at an early stated time. In another hadith, right, I think it was by Muslim or Bukhari, in one of these narrators, that if somebody missed the Asr prayer, subhanallah, right, according to this hadith, the deeds will be invalid. So, especially Asar prayer is the most important prayer. The most important prayer is the Asar prayer, right? So you need to really focus on it. Why is it the most important prayer? The middle prayer is the Asar prayer. Because this is the time in which people are too busy with the dunya, isn't it true? Right? You need to really focus on the priorities. Yes, of course, right? Our work is very important to support our family. But always remember, it is Allah who is the one who will provide us with the income at the end of the month. It is not your boss, it is not your employment, it is Allah, right? So you need to come back to Him, right, in order to try and um, have this ability, right, to have this taqwa, right, to leave everything behind and to pray as soon, yes, as soon as the adhan comes, right? Now, alhamdulillah, it's in hadith, it's a sunnah, at home, we do our adhan, isn't it true? We do adhan and then we do iqamah. Right, that's why I say, subhanallah, right? The house seems so peaceful because the adhan is, what do you call it, is pronounced every day, 5 times a day in the house, right? It's not for me personally, it seems so easy, alhamdulillah, to wake up at tahajjud at about 3 o'clock, right? It's no problem, alhamdulillah. Okay? Now, so come back to this about taqwa, right? So make sure that we have the taqwa is continuous, inshallah, until our last breath, right? Now, the ability to have taqwa is so important that whatever obstacle that comes our way, right? This taqwa is powerful tool, right? To remove any obstacles because you know, right, that you have Allah as an obligation to obey no matter what. So this is something in which it is so important that Allah informed us, right? Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. That the one who is honored by Allah is the one with taqwa. Which verse again? I've said it in almost every lesson. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. In surah number, brothers, sisters, I'm waiting. 49, right? In verse number 13, right? And in another verse, in surah number, was it 8, right? In verse number 29, yeah, Allah informed us, yeah, oh, you believe, if you have taqwa to Allah, Allah will grant you furqan, right? The ability to distinguish the truth from the falsehood, right? So do understand this, yeah, about the ability to have this taqwa, which is an inner virtue, something in which, brothers and sisters, it is only known to Allah, right? You can pretend to wear this and go to the mosque and all this, but only Allah knows how much of God conscious that you have, right? Because some people do it as a show, isn't it true, right? That you want people to see how you are, but when you're at home with the family, it's completely different. Okay, now, any questions? If I can't answer you at the side, right, I'll just WhatsApp me and I will try to answer your question, inshallah. Okay, now, so let's talk now about the elements, essential elements of fasting, right? Before we talk about this, you and I know that sighting of the moon, it is important to determine when Ramadan is going to start. Some countries are using other techniques, right, that they have already determined when it's going to start. But according to the Quran, yet the sighting on the moon is crucial, right? Because Islam is very simple. It doesn't really need the ability to have all this sophisticated equipment, right, to determine fasting, right? Because as you know, some Muslims are lived in the parts of the desert and all this with no equipment at all. So what they need to do it is to look for the sight of this crescent of the new moon of Ramadan, which inshallah is going to happen perhaps about maybe 11 or 12 days time, inshallah. Okay, where did Allah say this about the sighting of the moon? Right, which surah, brothers sisters? In surah number 2, in verse number 185, isn't it true? Right, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم 2:185. Yeah. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه. The month of Ramadan, right, in which was revealed the Quran, a guidance for mankind and clear proofs for the guidance and the criterion of Furqan. So whoever of you sights, right, sights which what? The crescent of the new moon, right? Whoever of you sights the crescent of the month, or the new moon of the month, he must observe Saum for that month, right? So this is the one in which will be the determining factor in countries like us, like Saudi Arabia and many of the Middle Eastern countries, is about sighting, right? And always remember also, so the first thing, right, to determine when Ramadan is going to start, right? Secondly, fasting is always from Fajr, right, to Maghrib. Okay, so like one of brother, I won't mention names, of course, say that with the voluntary fast, we know about the intention voluntary fast can be done at any time, even after Fajr, right? But as long as he or she doesn't eat or drink, okay? So if you have had a full breakfast at about 8 o'clock and suddenly you realize that, oh, actually I wanted to fast for Sha'ban, right? Then I'm afraid the fasting will not be valid, right? It is from Fajr until Maghrib, right? That's why, and another hadith of the voluntary fast, Prophet Muhammad was asking the wife, yeah, in somewhere in the late morning and all this, is there food in the house? And they said, no, there's no food. Subhanallah, you're talking about the Prophet of Allah, right? The commander of the Muslims. No food at all, right? And he said, Subhanallah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, then I'm going to fast. Okay? So it is from Fajr to Maghrib. Now, Maghrib, of course, right? You remember when we were at the peak of the summer, how difficult it was. Some countries almost in where was it? In Iceland and in northern part of Norway, right? Where they hardly, the sun never sets, right? Then they have to determine the position, whether the nearest city, which may be London, right, or the Mecca or Medina, yeah, to determine the time of to break the fast. Yeah, it is as long as the religious authority approve, it can be done in any of those. So Islam is meant to have it ease. How can you fast almost 24 hours a day? It's impossible for any human being to survive, right? So it's possible, but it will cause you a lot of harm more than goodness. Okay. Now, so the first thing that we talk about, so this is the first introductions about when Ramadan is going to begin and fasting from Fajr to Maghrib, right? Now, intention, the first essential elements of fasting is intention, right? So look in Surah number 98, verse number 5. وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ, right? And they were commanded not, but they should worship Allah and worship none but Him alone, right? So this is important, that the intention of Ramadan, fasting in Ramadan, it is done only for the sake of Allah. If you are doing this because your wife is nagging at you, your husband is nagging at you, therefore you have to fast, or because you're afraid of your mother and others, subhanallah, right? Then your fasting may not be accepted. Isn't it true? It's very important to understand this. Intention is only for the sake of Allah. Okay? Now, because of course you know from the famous hadith, innamal a'malu binniyati so actions are judged by the intentions. Yeah, innama a'malu binniyati. Yeah, wa innama likulim ri'ma nawa. Yeah, that you will get rewarded only according to what you have intended. So this is important. Brothers, sisters, very serious, right? We discussed before a few times. At no time must you have any intention to do the fasting because you want to lose weight, right? Do it for the sake of Allah. If you lose weight, alhamdulillah. If you don't, like many people in the Middle East, they will gain weight more than lose weight. Then, you know, all the best, right? But if you lose weight, alhamdulillah, is a bonus, right? So do it for the sake of Allah, not of any other things, right? Because of the hadith of intention, right? Now, the intention can be done for this. I'm talking about now specifically for the fasting of Ramadan, right? In two ways, right? Before we start Ramadan, in your heart, okay, I want to fast for the whole of Ramadan. That may be sufficient, or it can be done, or it must be done before Fajr every day. And we're going to talk about how to do intention. It is completely wrong, as in many cultures, including my own culture, that there is a certain phrase, right, to be said about intention. Now, why do and all this to be said verbally? That is completely wrong. There is no basis in the Quran and authentic hadith, right? Because if you have done that, you would have done a great innovation, right? Now, intention can be in terms of, for example, let's say, okay, I intend to wake up for sahur, then I set up my alarm clock. That setting of alarm clock is actually an intention to fast, right? If I just have a sip of water before I sleep, okay, in case I cannot wake up tomorrow, I'm going to fast, right? I'm going to take a sip of water before I sleep. That is an intention, right? If I eat in the morning, wake up about, now Fajr is about 4:30, almost there, isn't it true? 4:30, 4:31, 32, and all this. If I wake up at about 4 o'clock to sahur, to do my sahur, and I were to drink water, that is intention to fast, right? It is not a verbal thing that you say, I intend to fast the day for the sake of Allah. It's not, right? So don't do this, right? We need to really understand about the deen, right? How is it done, right? Remember, we talked before in Surah number 5, verse number 3, Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum Islam dina. This day, I have perfected your religion for you. I have completed my favors upon you, and I have made Islam as your religion. In Surah number, brothers and sisters, which Surah? That Allah has completed our deen in Surah number 5, in verse number 3, right? You must know this, right? That this is when Islam was completed. This was when even the Jews, right? They said, right? If this were to reveal to us, then it will be taken as a day of celebration, right? So something in which we need to stick to the proper hadith, authentic hadith, and to the Quran, right? In order to understand about how to do acts of worship. Everything else is haram in acts of worship unless there are evidence in the Quran and authentic hadith. Okay? Now, so this is important, right? First of all, to determine the intention, it must be done either before Ramadan starts, right? That in your heart, okay, whole of Ramadan, I'm going to fast, or every day you do it. It must be done. If you have not done this, there is no fast. From hadith, from Ahmad an-Nasa'i, at-Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, yeah, and classified as Sahih. Prophet Muhammad SAW said, whoever does not determine to fast before Fajr will have no fast. That means those who has no intention, the fast won't be accepted. Okay, as I said just now, for voluntary fast, you can do it at any time. Two different opinions. One person say one opinion, one set of opinions say that you must do intention for this a voluntary fast, right, before noon, right? But so this is like from the Hanafiya and Shafi'i, Imam Shafi'i and Imam Hanafi, yeah, Abu Hanifa said about the intention must be made before noon, but Ibn Mas'ud and Imam Ahmad Hanbali said that intention can be made before or after noon, after the noon time, right? So it can be done on any other time as after Fajr. Okay. Now, the next thing that we need to say, talk about the principles. So this is about the what do you call it? Essential elements of fasting. The first one was intention. Okay. The next one, okay. The next one is who must fast. Right? Who is obligated to fast? Of course, the first thing we need to understand, he must be Muslim, is natural, right? Alhamdulillah, for those who are non-Muslims, you know who you are. You may be fasting before you took Shahada, Alhamdulillah, but it's not required. Most important thing is La ilaha illallah. Okay? The next one is that every sane, adult, healthy Muslim male who is not traveling at that time. These are the obligatory people who must fast. Every sane, adult, healthy Muslim male who is not traveling. Right? So this is important, right? For women, as you know, right, those who are menstruating or having post-childbirth bleeding, right, they are not required to fast. Now, so this is something in which it is obligatory, yeah, brothers and sisters. This must not be taken lightly, right? It is obligatory. And we're going to talk about later about those who have not still repaid their fasting of previous years, right? If you missed it, as you know, you can divide it into two categories. You just need to, in some categories, right? You just need to pay back what you missed. For example, if you are sick and traveling, right? This year, in last year's Ramadan, you need to pay back the number of days that you have not fasted. Full stop. But in some other cases, besides paying these besides repaying back the fees missed fasting, right, you may also need to pay this thing called fidya to feed a one person for each days that you missed. Right, we're going to talk about it later, inshallah. Right. So the next one, fasting of the insane. You and I know the insane has no complete control of their decision making, right? So they are not obligated to fast at all because they do not understand. Okay. So as you know, the pens are lifted. Yeah, the pens are lifted. That means that it's not recorded all upon three people. Who are these people? First of all, a child until he or she reaches puberty. Second one, when a person is sleeping, and the last one is the insane. That means lifted means the pen is lifted means that whatever things that they do is not recorded, right? Because they're not accountable for the deeds. Okay. Now, the fast of a young non-adult, as we said just now, yes, of course, yeah, alhamdulillah, the children, right, are not obligated to fast, but you and I, those with children, right, you should train your children to fast at an early stage, early age, so that they are able to at least get used to fasting. But more importantly, brothers and sisters, as I've emphasized just now, Ensure that your children know how to pray first, right? And then we can focus at the same time or at a later stage about fasting, isn't it true? And that is so important. Okay, so now, in the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? The wives, right, of the Sahaba, right, when the children are fasting, as you know, right, we are in the UK. The temperature is not as hot. I remember a few years ago when we went to Umrah, it reached about 60 degrees in Medina. It was so hot, but alhamdulillah, as you know, we had all this air conditioning in the hotels and all this, you know. But imagine in those days, right, in early stage, and when there's no air conditioning at all, right, it will be very very hot, right, in the Middle East especially, right. So what they would do is that they would let the children play with the stuffed toys and all this so that they can forget about fasting, because some children will be crying, right, until the time comes for the what do we call it, the iftar, right, or right, they will let the children take a nap and all this. Okay, so this is important to understand this. Okay, now the next one. Okay, now as I said, there are people who are permitted to break the fast or not fast at all, right, but they need to pay a ransom. That means they need to do the fidya without having to repay back the fasting. Yeah. Who are these people, right? First of all, they are the elderly men and women, right? So, and those with chronic illness. That means the illness will never, chronic means long term, right? You will never recover. So these are the people in which they must pay the fidya, yeah, to feed a person for every single day that they miss the fast, right? Now, it's not just about money, right? If you are in the villages and all this, right, they have, you need to pay in terms of give them barley or give them rice and all this. Okay, now it's not, there is no sunnah how much to give. There is no specific figure how much to give, but it should be adequate, inshallah. In the early days, they used the word sa or mad. Anybody knows the difference between sa and mad, right? Anybody? What is sa? What is one sa? And what is one mad? Because this were not measurements, right? These were just um, the ability to what do you call it? The amount of food, right? So sa, right? Sa means like a big bowl, a large salad bowl. So perhaps maybe about 3 liters, right? Um, a mud is a small salad bowl, right? Perhaps about 0.75 liters of volume, right? That kind of amount of, so rice completely full for mud. So one sa is equal to 4 mud, right? This is just for your information, because sometimes um, when you were to read all these literatures about fasting, they will use this amount, this quantity in order to pay the fidya, they call it. Yeah, fidya means the ransom that you make, right? Now, it is important to understand this, right? Because some people think that, oh, I can't. Okay, if your illness is not chronic, that means for 1 month, perhaps you have all this fever and what, perhaps with coronavirus, may Allah protect you and I, right? You can't do it, right? You cannot fast for the whole month for whatever reasons, right? Then you're not allowed to pay this, right? You need to repay back, yeah, for all the missed, let's say you missed 30 days of Ramadan. So before the next Ramadan comes, you need to repay back every single day that you miss. And this is very important, right? Now, according to the scholars, right, the fasting and the prayer that you miss, the how you repay back is very different, right? For prayer, as you know, if somebody hasn't prayed for the last 20 years, right, a lot of scholars, right, stated that they did not need to repay back all the days that they have missed. They just need to make tawbah, and inshallah, right, try to do it on time now, 5 times a day at least, and they need to do more sunnah prayer. But for fasting is a bit different, right? Because a lot of scholars did say, right, that you need to count as many days as you think that you have not missed and try to do it slowly, inshallah, as best as you can. Allah knows best, right? So this is something in which you do need to take this seriously, right? In terms of missed or what do you call it? That you need to really understand whether you need to just pay back the missed fasting or you have to make this fidya to feed a person, or you should do both. Okay, now there are a lot of questions and a lot of different opinions about pregnant women and about the breastfeeding women, right? Now, what I'm quoting to you now, right, these are taken from the Said Sabiq Fiqh al-Sunnah, right, that those who are breastfeeding and all this, as you know, when you're pregnant, right? Now, the first principle is that if, for example, in winter, right, the fasting time is not long in UK, perhaps from 7 o'clock to about 4 o'clock. It's not that long. And if you can fast, it's not difficult for you, then it's obligatory for this pregnant woman or the breastfeeding woman to fast, right? But when the time is long for fasting, right, it is obligatory, yeah, for you to understand to protect the fetus is so important, especially when you receive advice from your doctors that, oh, you shouldn't fast, right? Then you shouldn't fast, right? Now, in this opinion, I'm just going to say, right, that according to them, and I'm going to say to you about other opinions, right, that from Ibn Abbas and all this, right, that you do not need, yeah, to pay to make up for the fasting days later. You just need enough to pay the ransom, right? Another opinion, Nafal reported that Ibn Umar was asked about a pregnant woman who feared for her unborn baby. He replied, she is to break the fast and to feed one poor person a day 1 mat of barley. All right, that means she need not repay back the fasting. The fidya is sufficient. Now, another opinion, right, stated that no, right, you should try to do the fasting at the same time that you should do the fidya. That is the best. Okay, so this is it, right? This are the two different opinions, right? Now, which one do you take? Well, I think every mothers are different, isn't it true? Or you have your different strength, and mothers would know best in the sense that some pregnancies is easy for you, right? When you're breastfeeding and all this, the first pregnancy may be very difficult and all this, right? Subsequent pregnancies are easier, right? According to, for example, Islam QA and all this, they say that you need to do both, right? You need to pay back the missed fasting, and to be on the safe side, you need to pay the fidya, right? Especially when you miss 1 year, 2 years, and all this. Okay, I'm just thinking about the opinions of things, and I think we discuss it later, inshallah. If you WhatsApp me, and I can forward you all the opinions regarding the those who are pregnant and those who are breastfeeding. Okay. It is something in which there are different opinions regarding this. Yeah, but we just do the best. But I'm quoting to you from this from Fiqh Sunnah from Said Sabiq, right? Quite a famous book, right? That according to this book, you do not have to make up the days of maize fasting, right? This is from Abu Dawud and related from Ikrimah on all this, right? So it is quite authentic. Yeah. Now let's move forward to the fasting procedures in detail. Okay. Now, um, first of all, eating sahur, right? Don't have this opinion that can't be bothered to wake up for sahur. I'm so tired, right? Subhanallah, eating sahur has a lot of blessings. Isn't it true? Because hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, right? Eat a pre-dawn meal or sahur, therefore there are blessings in it. Okay. Now, another hadith related from Nasa'i with a good chain. Yeah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you should eat the sahur or pre-dawn meal, for it is a blessed nourishment. Okay. So you and I, we should. I think now is a bit easier, isn't it true? Because in the early days, I remember like about 3-4 years ago, right? Me and my wife used to pray in um, East London Mosque for Taraweh. Finished at about 1 o'clock. Took a bus home and all this. Alhamdulillah, sometimes people drive us back. Alhamdulillah, and then we reach home just nice for the sahur, and then fajr in the mosque, and then sleep, right? So we don't sleep for the whole night. Now it's a bit easier because, well, easy or difficult is very relative. Because some of us do not like to sleep because they afraid they cannot wake up for fajr, right? But now it should end early, especially now in lockdown. Your Tarawih prayer should end earlier, right? And then you should sleep and then wake up for the sahur, right? Because if not, you lose these blessings. Now, if you look or switch on the Islam channel, right? They have this dua for sahur. Now, there is no authentic hadith that when after you eat a sahur before fajr, there is a dua. There is no dua at all in authentic hadith. So I wouldn't do it. Despite Islamic channel, as you know, when before the fajr time they have this dua, right? So don't do it because there is no authentic hadith regarding this, right? At the same time, right? There is no imsak. We discussed last week. Imsak, like in Indonesia, Malaysia, there is 10 minutes interval before Fajr prayer where you must stop eating. Well, perhaps they have a good intention to prevent people from overeating until Fajr time. But technically in Islam, you can eat all the way until Fajr time. So if Fajr tomorrow is about 4:30, you can eat all the way until 4:30. Okay. Now, what would fulfill the sunnah of this sahur, right? It is enough for it, to get this blessing. It is enough to get just a sip of water, right? I would eat, as I told you, right, cereals and cornflakes and all this, which is more healthy. Those of you who are eating rice, okay, alhamdulillah, but always remember rice is actually quite filling only at the point of eating, right? But, right, you uh you will feel hungry at about 10-12 o'clock, right? Whereas these cereals and cornflakes and all these are quite, first of all, they're very healthy, more healthy than rice, of course, definitely, right? But they are able to have a slow release of your energy and you won't feel hungry, subhanallah. Right? I just changed my diet maybe perhaps about 5-6 years ago. Used to eat rice, of course. The good thing about also, of course, eating these cornflakes and cereals, it takes only about 6-7 minutes to finish your food. Whereas all this rice you to microwave or to cook it, pre-cooked it, and all this, right? It's a bit troublesome. Okay. Now, it is also important, right, to delay the sahur. Okay, I answer Elmi about you later about this reading from the Quran, inshallah. Right now, This about the sahur, right? It is important to delay the sahur as a sunnah, right? Now, because Prophet Muhammad said in the hadith, right? We ate the pre-dawn meal with Messenger of Allah and then we got for prayer, right? So the amount of time between the end of the meal and the prayer is about reciting 50 verses, okay, from Bukhari Muslim, right? So to delay it, so let's say Fajr is about 4:30, right? You shouldn't eat at about 3 o'clock. If you want to follow the sunnah, yeah, it's actually to delay the sahur but hasten the iftar. We're going to talk about iftar after this, inshallah, right? So delay sahur, hasten the iftar. So you should eat all the way, inshallah, until perhaps about 4:25 and all this. Just stop, because you need to brush your teeth, perhaps, right? I would always brush my teeth because sometimes my conflicts has all these chocolates and all this, right? So I need to make sure that it is clean, okay? So as I said before, right, in hadith from recorded by Al-Bayhaqi with a Sahih chain by Ammar ibn Ma'mun, at Prophet Muhammad companions of Prophet Muhammad upon whom be peace, would be the first to break the fast and the last to eat their pre-dawn meals. Right, again, to emphasize about to delay, right, to delay the sahur. Okay, now as I said just now, delay sahur, hasten to break the fast. Right, so if you happen to be traveling in a train and all this, right now, subhanallah, lockdown, right? I assume it will continue for at least a few weeks after Ramadan, right? In the sense that you will be at home most of the time anyway. But in case you are traveling for your work and all this, may Allah protect you, right? You should, if you're happening to go back late from work, you should put in your pocket or in your bag some dates and all this, right? Now, it is a sunnah to eat an odd number of dates. Now, the type of food for iftar are the following. The first priority, if you have, it is a fresh dates. Fresh dates are those in which it is like about yellow color, isn't it true? You could find it in HWR Road and all this. Fresh dates. If you have no fresh dates, then the dry dates. If no dry dates, then water. Okay, so this is related from hadith from Abu Dawud and Al-Hakim. Okay, now so this is something in which a lot of people have different methods of breaking the fast, isn't it true? Right, some people will prefer to eat the dates first and then maybe samosa, one or two, right? And then you go for your prayer and come back again to finish up the fasting. I think this is the best, right? So that you don't delay. Remember, brothers and sisters in Islam, that there is a limit of Maghrib, but it's not last for the whole night, right? If once you see that the streak of land disappeared, is finished, even though perhaps your Aisha may be a few minutes later, you have missed the Maghrib, right? So do be careful in this, okay? Now, however, you know from the hadith, if your main meal is ready, it's been heated, is all displayed and all this, then you should eat everything first, right? And take your time, but don't take too long, right? So this is a hadith that you should eat your meal first, right? And don't eat so much so that you get bloated and all this. There is always 1/3 food, 1/3 air, and 1/3 water. Okay. Now, as I said before last week, right? Subhanallah, right? A lot of people, while waiting for iftar, what do? Switch on TV, watch cartoons, watch whatever it is on TV, Netflix, movies first, and all this, or play with your games and all this. Subhanallah, one of the best times, if not the best time, to ever make a dua is before your iftar, isn't it true? We discussed last week in the hadith, right? Before iftar, right? Allah would redeem people from the hellfire, and this occurs every day. right? So something in which you and I, in Ramadan, of course, right? That you and I, we should try and do as many dua as possible, right? I would advise those who are preparing the meals, whether with the male or the female in the family, prepare the meal. Stop everything about 10 to 15 minutes before Maghrib, right? Hate to say this, the food need not be very hot so that your food is so nice to eat. No, subhanallah, just do it. You have to think people in Syria, people in Yemen, people in many parts of the world, they may not have even the luxuries that we have. Isn't it true? Right? They might eat, they just have simple meals like dates only, perhaps, right? Or just water. Okay? So we should stop preparing the meals about 10 minutes before Maghrib, and we should individually, of course, not together, individually make dua to Allah, yeah, to protect us from hellfire and all these dua. So it is the best time to make dua, as you know, in the um, last few minutes before your iftar. Okay, so remember when you make this kind of dua, remember the etiquette of dua. I repeat again, you need to, first of all, glorify Allah, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, and all this. Next one, you need to send blessings on Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma salli wa sallim ala nabi Muhammad, and all this, or even in English, right? And then you need to ask Allah for forgiveness. The best dua of forgiveness is dua of Yunus alayhi salam, right? According to authentic hadith, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minal zalimin. And remember, we discussed many times, right? When Yunus alayhi salam made this dua, the angels went up to Allah, right? And asked Allah, aren't you going to answer the dua of your righteous slave? Perhaps when we say this dua of forgiveness, Allah would immediately turn his attention to us, and to our dua, inshallah. May Allah accept all our dua, yeah, whether in Ramadan or pre-Ramadan. Okay, and last one, make dua to Allah by using His beautiful names, right? Ya Allah, Ya Rab, Ya Razaq, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, and all this, and of course related to what you're asking for. Okay, now, so this is etiquette that you need to make before you make this dua before your meals. So when the adhan comes, brothers and sisters, don't just gobble up the food, right? There is a special dua that you can say, isn't it true? Right? Asking Allah to, like, for example, ذهب الظمأ وبطلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله. Right? And all these are found in your fortress of the Muslim. Right? The thirst have gone, I think the glands are moistened, and with Allah's will, the reward is confirmed. Right? All this is from the fortress of the Muslim that you can find. Right? And we say Bismillah, and then you eat. Now you can eat immediately when the adhan Allah. You can immediately say this dua and eat. You need not wait for the adhan to be completed. Okay? And we discussed just now, okay, that it is important to hasten the iftar. Okay, so inshallah by now you should be, if you have not done your shopping, right, go to the markets now and get, before next week there will be, I'm sure there will be a stampede of people trying to buy the dates in the markets and all this. Do try to buy early, right, and prepare for this, if Ramadan, all this, inshallah. Okay, now, so this is about iftar. Okay, now in between Ramadan, in between the sahur, fajr and maghrib, when you are fasting, do remember we discussed before so many times, right, that there are many actions that people may do that may not benefit the fasting. So do take care of it, right, especially our tongue. Right? In hadith, we discussed like 1 or 2 weeks ago, right? Prophet Muhammad SAW, from Abu Hurairah, reported Prophet Muhammad SAW said, fasting is not about just about abstaining from eating and drinking only, but also from vain speech and foul languages. Right? If one of you is being cursed or not, you should say, I'm fasting, I'm fasting. Right? This is from Ibn Khuzaimah, Ibn Hibban, and Al-Hakim. Okay? Another hadith, Prophet ﷺ said, from Abu Hurairah too. Allah does not need the fast, subhanAllah, listen to this, Allah does not need the fast of one who does not abandon false speech or acting according to his false speech, related by the group Bukhari, Muslim, and all this. Right? Another hadith, Abu Hurairah narrated, the Prophet Muhammad said, perhaps a fasting person will get nothing from his fast save hunger, and perhaps the one who stands to pray at night will get nothing from his standing except sleeplessness. Yeah, from An-Nasai, Ibn Majah, and Al-Hakim. So all this in relation to the fact that it's not just about not eating and not drinking. Is it true? Right? Because like that, anybody can do it, right? But it's about fasting of the eyes, fasting of the ears, fasting of everything, the mouth, and especially, right? And everything. We need to calm ourselves down, inshallah, when we need to completely understand, right, that perhaps the things that we may do may cause the rewards to be reduced. Okay. Now, so this is what I mean, right? So before or during fasting, especially before the iftar, right? Don't be so obsessed with your Netflix. Don't be so obsessed with your computer games, right? Don't be obsessed with, your social media and all this, right? Make sure this is Ramadan, brothers, sisters. We may not, inshallah, we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will allow all of us to meet the month of Ramadan. But perhaps this may be our last Ramadan, isn't it true? Right? Something in which we need to really focus our attention, on how to please Allah. Remember, the effect of fasting, inshallah, it is to achieve taqwa, right? And the effect of this whole Ramadan, inshallah, it is perhaps to be forgiven of all our sins, right? Now, the next thing that we need to ask ourselves, is it okay to brush our teeth during fasting? Right? The answer is yes. And it all depends on your intention, isn't it true? Who among you and I who has the desire to drink or eat the toothpaste? No, isn't it true? Right? It's beyond our thinking, right? So this is something in which we need to focus on the intention, which is to please Allah, right? So we are allowed to gargle the mouth, brush the teeth, even with toothpaste, right? But do not do it in an exaggerated manner. Okay? So, for example, right, when you do wudu, no need to gargle everything so thoroughly because some things may go into your throat. Now, if any water were to go into our throat accidentally, right, then it's okay, inshallah. Right? That's why Prophet Muhammad was forbidding people not to do it in an exaggerated manner, right? So just do artificial rinsing of the mouth for wudu, right? And so at the same time, when you brush your teeth, you can use toothpaste, right? And you can and gargle it thoroughly, of course, right? One thing I wouldn't recommend you to do, right? And I know people were asking me before in previous years, right? If you are really, really, really thirsty, right? It's so thirsty that sometimes when you get so thirsty, there is this pain in your throat, right? Never, never, never rinse your mouth, right? And this is very important because there is always this intention. Well, hopefully when I rinse, I have no desire to drink, but there's this hope that something will reach your throat and perhaps going down and quench the thirst. So don't do that. If you're so thirsty, I would advise you just go, subhanallah, in UK, right? Very few places air conditioned, right? In your own house and my house, right? In Singapore and all these places, most of our houses are air conditioned, right? If you have air conditioning, alhamdulillah, in your office, go to your office and all this just cool down. You can always take a shower, right? You can take a shower. You can dip yourself in the bath, not too long, of course. Don't waste time, right? You can just cool yourself down, inshallah, and it will it will make it better for your thirst, right? As last time, subhanallah, when we were in Singapore, we have to do military service for 2.5 years when I was 18 to 21 years old, right? We do all this despite fasting, and I know how it feels like. Okay, so just cool yourself down at home, right? You're allowed to take a shower, take a bath, and all, just to cool yourself so that it won't get so thirsty and so much pain on the throat. Okay, so are you and I, those who are cooking especially, are we allowed to taste the food? Yes, we are allowed to taste the food. Again, intention, not to taste and go inside, right? But to taste and to spit out, right? So you are allowed to taste the food but spit out everything. And perhaps if you want, just gargle your mouth, right? So you are allowed to taste the food, right? It is in some hadith is recorded. Okay. Now, another thing about fasting, it is to be generous with the recitation and the reading of the Quran, right? So it is important for you and I to try and read the Quran more than in any other month. Alhamdulillah, with the lockdown, many of us should be in the house. Isn't it true, right? Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself, right, in the hadith, right, from Bukhari, right, recorded by Ibn Abbas, he said that Ibn Abbas said, right, that Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would always be generous with the Quran in the month of Ramadan, right? And when he would meet the angel Jibril alayhi salam, he would meet him every night and recite the Quran, right? So this is something in which you and I, we need to be more focused, inshallah, on the Quran. I always remember, brothers and sisters, we discussed so many times, right, about this um, Quran, right? There is no hadith that at all that you must finish the Quran, right? More importantly, you and I, we need to read the Quran in a very understanding way, in a sense that you understand what you read, you ponder over the meaning, inshallah. And if you do not understand any verse, ask around or look yourself, look at the tafsir of Ibn Kathir and all this in order to try and um, understand and, more importantly, implement what you read, inshallah. Okay. Now, the next part, right, of this, as I say, if you have any questions, just WhatsApp me and I'll try to answer you, inshallah. Okay. Now, the next one would be the acts that are permissible during the fast. Right. Now, the following acts are permissible for a fasting person. Right. These are permissible. Number one, to pour water over oneself and submersing oneself in water, as we discussed just now. Right. The hadith from Rasulullah himself, Prophet Muhammad, he would pour water when it's very hot. You have to remember, in those days, even today, right, in Saudi Arabia, it would be about 50 degrees in summer. Okay, so he would do that during thirst and extreme heat, related from Ahmad, Malik, and Abu Dawud. So we are allowed to do this. Okay, now the next one, applying eye drops, alcohol or similar to it to the eyes. So you're allowed, if your eyes are very dry, to apply eye drops, right? Now, the principle is this. Firstly, nothing should go into the mouth by the normal route of eating, right? Secondly, nothing should reach the stomach by the normal way, right? And this is it. So, like the common question, right? Those who are asthmatic, all this, are you allowed to do your vapor and all this? Many scholars said yes, right? Ibn Uthaymin and all this said yes, you're allowed to do this because the vapors of this function is to expand this part, isn't it, into the lung area and all this. It doesn't go to the stomach, rarely at all. Even if it does, there's no intention, right? So it goes to expand because you cannot breathe, right? There's only a caveat with, I think, Bin Baz, one of the scholars, right? Well, if it's really bad, it is permissible, but if you're doubtful, then don't do it at night. But you and I know, right, especially for those asthmatic sufferers and asthmatic people and all this, right, sometimes that pump, right, that you use, yeah, to are very significant because it may affect your fasting and all this, right? Now, so the rule of thumb from most scholars, if not all, it is permissible because, again, as I said, it doesn't go to the direct route of food and water. It goes to the lungs and all this to expand it. Okay. Now, so eye drops is okay, right? Now, kissing your wife or your husband, right? In general, it is allowed to kiss. And now, let us be matured about this, right? Because some of the things we're going to discuss are required maturity. So that it is important to understand this, right? That you are allowed to kiss, right? But if either husband or wife are not able to control yourself, that means he or she would ejaculate after if he cannot control himself and all this, then don't kiss, right? But in general, we have hadith, yeah, that Prophet Muhammad was asked about this. One of the Sahaba said, "Oh, I'm doomed. I've kissed my wife," right? And Muhammad said, "Yes. What's wrong with that? Right? You can do it." Okay. So it is disliked by certain of the madhab like Hanafi and Shafi'i and all this is disliked, but it is allowed. Okay. Now, any types of injections are also allowed. For example, if it is urgent for you also to go for dental appointments and you need to take out your teeth or whatever it is, or you need to do some cleanings or some fillings that are painful and they need to inject you. Remember, I was a dentist once, right? So I'm familiar with this, right? So you are allowed to, what do you call it? Have injection right on your teeth. It doesn't invalidate your fasting. Okay. Now, as I said, as long as it doesn't go through your normal way of eating, right? Cupping, right? Cupping is allowed, but disliked because cupping, as you know, it drains the blood, and especially when it causes you and I to lose a lot of energy, right? So it may weaken the fasting person, especially for in the early days when we were fasting in the midsummer. It might be quite tricky, very difficult, and very tight, weakens your system, right? So it is allowed, but it is disliked. Okay, we discussed just now rinsing the mouth and the nose are allowed, right? But it is disliked to exaggerate the rinsing. Okay, now what other things we got talk about nasal spray and all this. Now, of course, subhanallah, I remember when I was young, right? I think people in those early days in the 70s were quite ignorant about Islam, right? I saw the Muslims spitting here, spitting there, spit everywhere. It's so disgusting, right? Because they think that you cannot swallow your saliva. Brothers, sisters, Islam taught us about cleanliness, right? It's disgusting to see Muslims in Ramadan spit in the road, spit here, spit there, spit in your, put in the what do you call it, plastic and all this, right? You can swallow your saliva for goodness sake, right? You can swallow your saliva or anything that is not anything that you what do you call it? It is not intentional, right? Even when you are eating, right? If you forget that you are fasting and you're eating, right? It is permissible to continue fasting because in the hadith, Prophet Muhammad said, Allah perhaps has given you this blessing to eat and drink, right? But make sure, right, you have this bar of Mars chocolate and you are halfway eating, right? And you remember, oh, I'm fasting. Make sure you don't finish the bars of chocolate, right? Secondly, make sure you do not ever, oh, actually, because of this chocolate, I get very thirsty. Let me drink first, then I continue fasting. No. Once you remember, that's it, right? Stop everything and restart fasting again. Perhaps you just need to rinse your mouth, right? Because of these chocolates in your teeth and all this. Okay? Now, so this is about the things that we are all allowed to do, right? Now, and the next thing, right? At night, yeah, the fasting person is allowed to eat and drink, and husband and wife can do sexual intercourse, right? Now, once come the Fajr time, right? If husband and wife has not done the ghusl, right? It is still the fasting will still be accepted. Okay, ghusl can be done anytime, even after Fajr, the adhan of the Fajr. But of course, before you pray, you know, right? You should do ghusl before you pray. If not, your prayer will not be accepted. Okay. Um, but always remember, right? Um, as I said just now, right? Other people in other countries have not much food. Even in India, subhanallah, you saw the lockdown. I mean, the silly, they did it immediately, right? Hundreds of thousands of people have no food at all, subhanallah. Remember, a lot of people in the world, millions and millions and millions, have no food at all, right? Don't talk about the world, right? Even in UK itself, you know, from this coronavirus, right? People are struggling because the children are not getting a free meals. Subhanallah, the free meals are the only meal that you can have in a day, for example, right? So don't at night engorge yourself with all this food and eat and eat and eat and eat. Subhanallah, right? It is allowed, of course, but always remember others, right? And always remember to be moderate in everything that you do, even with eating, right? The rule of thumb, as we talked about last week, 1/3 water, 1/3 food, and 1/3 air, inshallah. Okay? Now, if, as I said just now, right? Also, besides person who, husband and wife who has done intercourse, right? If the blood of a menstruating woman or a woman with post childbirth bleeding stops during the night, right? She can delay ghusl in the morning. Okay, so that means by Fajr time, those who have finished the menstruation, right? You need not do your ghusl before Fajr, right? Your fasting will still be accepted, but do your ghusl before the prayer, inshallah. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're going to discuss, inshallah, are the actions that that makes our fasting or fast to be void, right? Now, the actions that avoid the fast may be divided into two types. Yeah, one of them that require the fast to be made up later. Another one is that requires besides the fasting to be made up later, it requires a further harsh penalty. Okay, so first one, of course, is about intentional eating or drinking. If you intentionally eat or intentionally drink, that's it, right? Your fast will not will be void, and therefore you need to make it up later. Well, this perhaps happened when, you know, some people are actually ill during the day and vomited, and they need, you know, so weak, right? So they, once you eat after that or drink, right, that's it, right? Your fasting will be void. But if you forget, as I said, forget about fasting and you were eating something, then immediately once you realize it, you need to stop eating and drinking, and then you will continue fasting, inshallah. Right. The next one, I know it's quite weird. I'm just um, feeling what I found in the notes and all this. Right. Intentional vomiting. Right. Some people, for whatever reasons, right, they just put their hands in their mouth and vomit it out. Perhaps it's a illness and all this, right? If you vomit unintentionally, right? Yes, your fasting is not void. But if you intentionally vomit, that means put your finger inside and vomit it out, then that's it. Yeah, you are not allowed to fast again. So the difference between unintentional vomiting. I remember many years ago I had a food poisoning in, I think, the first or second days of Ramadan, I had a food poisoning, and alhamdulillah I was able to continue the fasting, right? Um, because it's unintentional. Okay. Now, menses and post-child bleeding. Even if the bleeding starts 1 or 2 minutes before Maghrib, right, sisters, right, your fasting is void. So you need to make up the fast for that particular day that your bleeding starts. a few minutes before Maghrib, and of course the rest of the few days that you miss because of your menstruation or post childbirth bleeding. You cannot pretend that, oh, Maghrib is only 5 minutes time and I started to bleed. No, alhamdulillah, this is Allah's qadar, isn't it true? Be patient and Allah will reward you, subhanallah, yeah, for your patience. Okay, now the next one is ejaculations of the sperm, right? For the men especially, right? If you are doing it, if you have a wet dream and all this, right? Or you are doing it without intention. For example, you're kissing your wife and all this, it came, yes, this ejaculation, all this. These will, if it does not, yeah, void the fast because it is not done intentionally, right? If you do it, right, we don't talk about it later, husband and wife having intercourse and all this during fasting, right, there's a penalty for it. But if things that are done, for example, you're thinking of something and there's an ejaculation, right, not purpose, right, sorry, let me rephrase all this, right? If it's done, right, on purpose, right, then it is voiding the fast. The fast is void, right? If you have a wet dream and all this, right, it does not void the fast, right? So it's all about intention. Okay, and as I said just now, right, if you know that you're weak, right, the minute you start to kiss your wife and all this, something will happen, then stop kissing your wife, right? So you know yourself, right? So it is important to understand, right? Now, if you have next one, if you have an intention, right, to break your fast, just intention, right, then the whole fast will be void. And it's quite important, right? For example, some point or another, you know they're going to travel, for example, right, and it's a long journey, right? Then you had intention not to fast in the plane, right? So that morning you were trying to fast, it will be void, even though in the plane you're not eating at all, but you have the intention to do it, right? So the intention will make the fasting, any intention to fast later, void, right? So this is quite important to understand this, right? Now, if one does the iftar, next point, right? And you did not know, because in those early days, right, there's no iftar time. They would look at the clouds and the skies and see there's no clock, zitra, in those days, right? And we know Umar ibn Khattab, and they were cooking and they were eating and all this, and they thought it was iftar, but it was actually a big cloud. It was very dark, right? So they continued the fasting, right? All these are unintentional mistakes. Now, the only mistake that a person requires to do a penalty, right, is when husband and wife, right, deliberately had a sexual intercourse during fasting, right? Remember this hadith, yeah, from Abu Hurairah, Prophet Muhammad SAW said, the person said, I'm destroyed, Messenger of Allah. Prophet SAW said, why are you destroyed? Right? Because I have sexual intercourse with my wife, right? And then, first of all, Muhammad SAW said, can you free a slave? He said, no, I can't free a slave, right? Can you feed 60, sorry, can you fast for 2 consecutive months? He said, no. And Prophet SAW asked, can you feed 60 people? No, I have no money, right? And then he brought a date. Prophet Muhammad brought a date. Now, distribute it to people who are poor, right? And he said, but there's nobody in this place poorer than me, right? And Prophet Muhammad smiled and said, feed this to your family. So this is the penalty. Now, think about this issue properly, right? These are 2 believers in their weakness, right? They had sexual intercourse, husband and wife, of course, right? So beside because so the fasting was void for the day, right? So beside paying for that missed fast, they had to do either of this. So freeing a slave comes first, right? Now we got no slave now. Then we need to fast for 60 consecutive days or 2 consecutive months. Consecutive, they cannot have a break. It's a penalty, right? If you can't do it for perhaps health reason, they need to feed 60 people. Now, this is a penalty of a believer who cannot control him or herself. What about those who deliberately miss the fasting? Yeah, it's much worse, isn't it true? Right? So this is something in which we have to think carefully regarding this ruling, right? Now, so this is it, right? We're coming towards the end, inshallah, of the talk. Okay, this what we discussed today was about the fundamentals of fasting, right? To do what to do and what not to do, the do's and the don'ts of fasting, yeah, especially in the month of Ramadan. To conclude this, right, as a good habit to practice, first of all, brothers and sisters, yeah, eat healthy during sahur and during iftar, isn't it true? Right? Subhanallah, Allah gave us this body as a trust, right? To take care, because if we have a good diet, yeah, if we have a good practice of eating and all this, right, inshallah, it will make us healthy. If we are healthy, inshallah, it will make us have the ability, inshallah, to worship Allah better, isn't it true? Right? So this is important to understand this. It always goes hand in hand about being healthy, eating healthy food, and all this. Don't eat every day curry, right? And all this unhealthy food all the time, right? There must be a change in our lifestyle, right? Remember, Allah said very clearly, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, right? That I do not create the jinns and mankind except that they should worship me. So this is our purpose in life, right? It is to worship Allah. If we can't worship Allah properly because of our diet, then you have to blame yourself. Isn't it true? You can't blame qadar. Of course, it's qadar of Allah, right? But you yourself have the free will to control your food, right? So you need to, inshallah, ensure that you eat healthy. Okay? And as I said, just number 2, do not overeat, right? So something in which we should, inshallah, with Allah's will, that we should lose weight. Anybody who gains weight, something must be wrong with you, isn't it true? Then you need to analyze your diet, analyze your food, right? Hate to say this, a lot of people in the Middle East, they will gain weight in Ramadan more than lose weight. Now, we talked just now, make plenty of dua in during fasting, right? Make plenty of dua, right? Do not, as I said just now, switch on your Netflix, switch on your games and all this before iftar, especially, inshallah, so that Allah will be able to answer your dua. So make a lot of dua, especially before we break our fast, right? The next one, number 4, do not oversleep, right? I know it's very tiring and lockdown is very boring, right? But spend the time wisely, as we discussed just now. Read the Quran, right? Watch the YouTubes that are beneficial to you, inshallah, right? Do not oversleep, because then you lose the benefits of fasting. You can have a rest, inshallah. For example, it's a sunnah to sleep after lunch, isn't it true? If you can spend about 30 minutes sleeping and rest and all this, right? And then after that, you wake up and read the Quran and all this, inshallah. Okay. Now, very important, exercise even during fasting is important, right? Exercise doesn't mean you have to go to the gym if you're tired, right? You just take a walk and all this, right? Hopefully, inshallah, maintaining the social distancing, of course, right? We are allowed, isn't it true, in the government's guideline, take a walk, exercise and all this, right? Do it if you have the what do you call it, a treadmill at home, right? Run, right? So you can always do it, inshallah. Okay. Now, very important, if the lockdown of COVID-19 is still in place, do not invite family members to your house, from other households to your house for iftar. Isn't it true? Right? So this is important, right? To follow the guidelines, or even for Tarawih prayers. The purpose of this, lockdown and all this is to isolate ourselves, isn't it true? So you need to follow, inshallah, the guidelines that are given to us. Okay. And as I said to you, those who are preparing the meals, spend less time cooking, right? More time on the Quran and more time on seeking knowledge, inshallah. Okay, remember the purpose of fasting, it is to achieve taqwa. If after Ramadan we are still the same as we were before, then we have to question whether our Ramadan is accepted or not. Okay. Now, alhamdulillah, we come towards the end of this session. I hope this session is helpful to you and I, right, in terms of reminding each other about the fundamentals of fasting in Ramadan, especially, right, the do's and don'ts. As I said, any questions, you do need to write to me on WhatsApp or in my email. Just a few things to remind you, inshallah. We are going to, alhamdulillah, I think we have collected about at least 900 pounds to be sent to Indonesia. Jazakumullah khair. So do send in the money if you want, yeah, for us to send it to Indonesia. Our madrasa is ready, alhamdulillah, for 6 classes, as you saw from the videos that we showed on WhatsApp. People are still very poor, of course, right? Especially with this lockdown in some parts of Indonesia. So this is it, right? The next thing that I need to say is, yeah, so we have all these classes ongoing, inshallah. So do join us in all these classes. I was informed, I don't know whether it's true or not, right? If you want more people to join in the YouTube and all this, either subscribe or write a comment or post a like button, as some of you did, alhamdulillah, so that more people can benefit from this talk, inshallah, right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, yeah, in these times of difficulties, from all these virus infections. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of us with the ability to meet the month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us good health. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase our knowledge and iman, and allow all of us, yeah, to increase our taqwa in the month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us our sins and shortcomings. Yeah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help brothers and sisters who are suffering in many parts of the world, in Syria, in Palestine, in Yemen, in the Rohingya Muslims, the Uyghur Muslims in China. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase, yeah, our iman and taqwa, and grant all of us Jannatul Firdaus. Subhanaka wa bihamdika asyhadu alla ilaha anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Jazakumullah khair for all the attention that you have given me today. And inshallah, we'll see you for the sisters tomorrow on Skype. YouTube is only for today, right? For the Saturday sessions, YouTube, the Skype for the sisters tomorrow 1:45. Brothers for the Quranic recitations is from 4 o'clock, inshallah, tomorrow. Yeah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.